welcome to TripleJAquatics. Today we're going to be diving into the budget 60, but before we do that, I got something I want to talk to you guys about, so stay tuned. Hey, how's it going? Okay, so before we get started, the thing I want to talk to you guys about is aquarium location. If you're getting a new aquarium or you're moving one that you already have set up, take a minute and really think about where you're placing it and what your plans are for that area in the future. You can end up saving yourself a lot of headache and a lot of work. For example, I know my wife would like me to retexture and repaint the living room. And you know how it goes, guys. Happy wife, happy life. So I'm going to get that done for her. So what I'm thinking is because I need to get the angelfish out of their little quarantine tank and into this 60 as soon as possible, I'm going to go ahead and texture and paint this corner of the living room. That way I can set the tank up and I don't have to break it down and move it to get to this area later. And then I can just go through and finish texturing and painting the living room after that. So let's do a little time travel, guys, and get right to setting up the tank. I didn't go far enough forward. Let's try that again, shall we? Man, I really need to work on this time travel thing. Okay, so I'm renaming the budget 60 into Project Patience because this thing has tried my patience for the last like 6 months. Every single time I've tried to work on it, either my medical problems have flared up or there was something that happened financially. It's just been setback after setback. Now, in my life, I'm used to that. You know, you got to go with the flow.
Be formless, shapeless, like water. Be water, my friend.
Be willing to adapt and overcome and just keep on moving forward. What happened is the paint we were planning on using is actually leftover paint from painting our bedroom. And apparently it didn't like the freeze we got last year here in Texas because the paint's no good. And it's going to be a couple weeks before we get our next paycheck and can go buy some new paint. And I really want to get those angelfish out of that 15-gallon quarantine tank before it starts to stunt their growth. Also, it's just becoming a headache having to do a water change every 2 or 3 days to keep the water parameters in check with that much of a bio load in such a small tank. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to set up this 60-gallon and I'll just break it down and move it out of the way to paint later on. We're going to do the substrate and the equipment. Personally, I like to do the equipment first and then build my scape around the equipment in a way that allows me to easily remove, clean, or replace that equipment. I want to enjoy my aquariums. I don't want them to be extra work, so I like using plants because it helps keep all the bio load down, but I don't want it to be a huge headache to work on. So we're going to get the substrate in here, we're going to get the equipment in here. Let's get into it. So just as a refresher, my plan for the budget 60 was to do it as cheap as I could. The tank itself was free. All we did to it was clean it up and paint the frame. I'll put the link to that video in the description. So my cheapest substrate choice for what I could find in my area was the Black Diamond brand blasting sand. This happens to be the 5/16 inch series. I purchased 2 bags of that at my local Tractor Supply. They were $10 a bag. And I happen to have a half a bag left over from one of the other tanks I've done. As well as the Vigoro brand Pea Pebbles. This is a natural colored gravel. Purchased these bags at my local Home Depot for about $5 a bag. None of this is a sponsorship. It's just the products I could find locally for cheap that gave the look I was going for. Now, if you've never done the Black Diamond sand, it is a fairly dirty product. You have to really take your time and rinse it off. But once your water's running clear through it, you're good to go. And it looks great in the tanks. I think it looks really sharp, really makes the colors of the fish pop. So all I'm going to do is pour everything into a tote and mix it up. Here's just a reference. This is 1.5 bags of the blasting sand and 1 bag of the pea gravel. So you can see kind of the consistency there. Now this is a 66 quart 62 liter tote, and the 2.5 bags of substrate filled it halfway. Alright, we're going to keep getting it cleaned and get it all in the tank. So altogether in total, I ended up using 2 full bags of the blasting sand and 1 bag of the pea gravel. And in this 60 gallon, that worked out to give me just over 4 inches of substrate. And as a reference, this tank is about 48 inches long and 12.5 inches wide. For $25, I think that's some pretty cheap substrate to get that amount. All I did from there was I took a scrap piece of PVC pipe that I had laying around, and I just used it to mix it up, swirl it around a little bit to kind of get the consistency I was looking for. And I'd like to take a minute to talk about the equipment that I'm using. So if this is the first time you're joining us talking about the Budget 60, let me take a second to say that I use the word budget loosely. There's nothing budget friendly or cheap about this hobby, but there are ways you can do it for cheaper, and I'm just trying to set up a tank as cheap as I can and still feel comfortable with the equipment that I'm using. So with that, I didn't buy the cheapest stuff I could find, and I also tried to buy as much as I could locally. So some of these items I probably could have got cheaper online and had shipped to me, but I kind of wanted to see what I could find in my local stores, Walmart, Home Depot, Tractor Supply, that kind of thing. So first off in the equipment, I'm going to talk about the lids. With the lids, I'm using the Sunlight brand multi-wall polycarbonate sheathing that I've cut down to fit as the lid. I have a video on how easy it is to use this stuff, how easy it is to cut this stuff without using a power tool. I'll put the link to that in the description. It's actually right now my #1 viewed vid at about 6,500 views. Real durable. If you cut this stuff down to where the little slats, so don't know how well you can see that there on camera. If you cut it to where the slats are running across your tank, it actually is pretty sturdy. Now I'm about 340 pounds and I can put a good amount of weight on that, so I don't have to worry about if my cat jumps up here or setting a light or anything like that on it. It should hold it with no problem. Now this stuff I got at Home Depot. My local Home Depot sells it in 2 foot wide by 8 foot long pieces. Now if you're only doing 1 tank, or if you're doing a tank that's under 40 gallons, this might not work out to be the cheapest option. But if you're doing multiple tanks, or you're doing a tank that that's going to take a couple pieces to use as lids, it works out to be really cheap. The 2 foot by 8 foot piece is about $42 at my local Home Depot, and I get 7 to 8 lids out of it. So I'm getting my lids for what, $6 a piece, and I can't find a lid anywhere else that's that cheap, that's this durable and lets light through. The next piece of equipment we're using is a shop light for our lighting, and with this I got the Hyper Tough LED shop light from Walmart. This one happens to be the 5500 lumen and the linkable. I caught this on sale for $14.95. They've got a few different versions of these. They also have a 3200 lumen. This one happens to be in a gray kind of diamond plate look. So I'm kind of hoping that gray goes with the tank and stand paint. It's got 2 LED strips that are encased in a plastic tube, so I shouldn't have to worry about any little bit of moisture that'll get in there. Of course, we'll set that up on a timer and it'll just set on top of the lids like so for now. So from there, we have a few other things here. I'm going to use the Interpet submersible adjustable heaters. I'm going to use 3 100-watt heaters in this tank. The general rule of thumb is 5 watts of heat per gallon, but that's usually only to do, I think it's 5 to 10 degrees or 15 degrees more than room temperature. We usually have the room anywhere in the 70-degree range year round. Might get as hot as 76 if we're not running the AC, and as cold as 68 or 65 if we're not using the heat. So this should do fine to keep me in that 72 to 76 range for these fish. Next up, we're using a USB nano air pump. I did order these online. I got them from Aquarium Co-op because I could not find any place local that carried the USB ones. I also went with the Aquarium Co-op black tubing just because it's the only black tubing I've been able to find. I didn't find any of that locally either. And then just a couple of cheap check valves from Walmart. And these are the Aqua Papa sponge filters. They were the cheapest one I could find online. No local stores carry sponge filters in my area. But these are the cheapest ones I could find online that still had good reviews. So I figured we'd check them out. It'd be a great little thing to go back and review in a couple months and see what I think about them, see if I feel it's worth it. I was able to get 3 of these for $12. Makes them much cheaper than the Aquarium Co-op one. The sponge is way more, I guess, dense. So I may have to clean them out a little more frequently than the Aquarium Co-op brand. But we're going to try those out and see what we think. And of course, I already have some things on stock by having multiple tanks already. Some extra hose, no clog air stones, stuff like that. So now that we've talked about the equipment that I've chose to use, I'm going to go ahead and get it all in here and set up. Get it filled with water and see how it looks. So I got the equipment all in, and I'm using my homemade fill and drain system here. If you want to see how I made this, I'll put the link to my video in the description. Started filling it up with water, and right away noticed something that I haven't had to deal with the Aquarium Co-op sponge filters, and that's that these Aqua Papa ones are wanting to float until they get waterlogged. I'm having to reach in there, kind of squeeze the air out of them, let them suck up some of that water, and then they're starting to sink finally. Hopefully they'll sink all the way, and after being in here for a while and getting all the air out of them, anytime I clean them out, hopefully they'll drop right back down to the bottom. But as you can see, all I had to do was squeeze it a couple of times and it sank. So if that's all I have to do to save a few bucks on this tank, so be it. Let's finish getting this tank filled up, and we'll test the rest of the equipment. Okay, so there you have it. That's all the equipment and the substrate in. That's what it looks like with the light on. It's going to be a nice bright tank. There's still some haze on the glass, and the water's still a little cloudy. Do a couple more water changes, of course, while everything's cycling. All that should get taken care of. The heaters are working. We're holding right at 78 degrees right now. And the sponge filters did in fact sink to the bottom. I had to squeeze them a couple more times to get all the air out, but now they drop right in with no problem. If I lift them out and wring them out, they still drop right back down. Pumps are working, so there we go. Next step will be to figure out how I want to aquascape it, and of course get the fish in it. As always, enjoy your own aquariums, and don't forget to get fishy. We'll see you guys next time.